New Perspectives Media, in association with Claflin University and the Orangeburg Historical Society. You join in the celebration, trials, and triumphs of a great American story. Coming this spring.
Slavery is a system of forced labor that has existed throughout the world for thousands of years. In America, slavery began in the 17th century when people in Africa were overpowered and forced to leave their native land, their culture, and their families behind.
First blacks that were in the area, and it wasn't directly in the Orangeburg area, but in kind of the Midlands of South Carolina, were brought in by the Spanish settlers, and that was in the 16th and the 17th century.
1870, when the first immigrants landed on the coast of Charleston, blacks were along with them also.
Orangeburg was settled by a number of white immigrants coming from Europe. They were escaping religious persecution, and they were all essentially poor farmers that came in. Those poor farmers then really didn't have slaves, and they didn't have means or wherewithal to get slaves. And so it wasn't like there was a whole group of slaves that moved in. But as those farmers...
I guess the rest of them came from there, but what I understand is most of them who came over back in those days married, had children by Indian women. Just like my dad, my mother's side, my mother's great-granddad came from England in the early 1800s, and my granddaddy bought the farm in 1903. My daddy took it over in 1945, and I took it over in 1980.
Because of the rich soil and land that this county sits on, whites, for some reason, brought more blacks into the Orangeburg area, and that reason would be...
was a sharecropper, and he used to sharecrop with farmers, with the white farmer. And if he felt that you didn't pay your land, pay your debt, he would take all your money, and you end up with nothing. So it was always a terrible war going on between farmers and the white farmer and the black farmer, because
was to do our own farm. And once we finished our farm, we were hard workers. Be frank with you, it was, especially after my father died, it was five of us, my twin brother, my two sisters, my younger sister was very small, and my mother. And at that time, when I was 12 years old, I could pick over 275, almost 300 pounds of cotton. So we could go in the field in the course of a day and pick almost a bale of cotton. Everybody worked.
Edisto River, during that time, blacks and whites had separate facilities. Where the art center is now, that's where the white population swam. We swam further downstream, and a couple of them jumped off the bridge and started swimming. And an individual, Caucasian youth, came by and took exception to us being there. And the clothing that they took off to strip down to their bathing suits, they jumped in the water. And I was there sitting on the bench with the clothing. He decided that he was going to kick the clothing off the bench. And of course, I told him that was not a wise thing to do. Subsequent to that, a highway patrolman came by, saw the altercation. One person was arrested. That person was me.
If you would compare the black people in America to the children of Israel, and them leaving Pharaoh's land and trying to move out of Pharaoh's land, being led by Moses and Joshua, there's always been you could compare the plight of the black people similar to that in that we've always needed that leader. And the spirituality of it has always come to, and really, whether or not people understand it or even know it, there's always a thirst.
As a black girl growing up in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and I think those experiences tend to color your perspective on life and how you treat people. And when you really sit down and think about it, we're all created equal in God's sight.
Pleased to announce the production of a 10-part documentary series chronicling the history and contributions of the African Americans of the city and county of Orangeburg, South Carolina.